Two-thirds of the way through the 20th century, the best-selling car on Earth was a small, round, friendly thing that stood for peace, freedom, and flowers in your hair. It was designed by order of Adolf Hitler. The most beloved car ever built began as a promise from a dictator and a swindle that took the savings of more than 300,000 ordinary people who never received a single car. This is the story of how one machine carried the darkest idea of the century and the sunniest rebellion against it. How a car built for a tyrant was rescued by an enemy soldier, sold to the world by admitting it was ugly, and adopted by the very people who should have hated everything it came from. Remember one number: 360,000. The people who paid for this car and never got it. Hold that thought. Start in 1934, Germany. Hitler wanted a car for the ordinary German, a Volkswagen, literally a people's car. Cheap enough that a factory worker could own one for under 1,000 Reichsmark. Part genuine dream, part pure propaganda. He hands the job to an engineer named Ferdinand Porsche. Yes, that Porsche. Porsche draws something strange and simple: an air-cooled engine, cylinders lying flat, bolted in behind the rear wheels. A smooth, rounded shell shaped by the wind. A shape so right that it will barely change for the next 65 years. And 30 years later, his grandson will build the same engine-in-the-back idea into the Porsche 911. They call it the KdF-Wagen, Kraft durch Freude, strength through joy, named after the regime's own leisure program. And here is how an ordinary German is meant to buy one. Not with cash, with stamps. Every week, you paste 5 Reichsmark of saving stamps into a little book. Fill enough booklets, and one day, they promise, a brand new car is yours. 336,000 people started filling that booklet. 60,000 of them paid for the whole amount in full. Not one of them ever received a car. Because in 1939, the war came, and the people's car went to war instead of the people. The vast new factory in a purpose-built town that would one day be called Wolfsburg stopped building anything for civilians. It built military versions for the Wehrmacht, the boxy Kugelwagen, the amphibious Schwimmwagen, and it built them on the backs of forced and slave labor. The weekly savings of hundreds of thousands of ordinary families had quietly turned into the machinery of the war. Then the bombers came for the factory itself. By 1945, it was a broken shell of a defeated country, a ruined plant that had built a Nazi car nobody wanted, in the rubble of the regime that ordered it, funded by the people it had robbed. This is where the story should end, a fall with no bottom left to hit. Except the rubble happened to fall inside the British occupation zone, and the man the British put in charge of it was an army officer named Ivan Hearst. Hearst looked at the wreck of Hitler's factory and saw something nobody else could. Not a symbol to be scrapped, a plant that could still build cars. So he took one of the little Beetles, painted it plain military green, and drove it up to British headquarters to show them what the ruin could still do. And on the 22nd of August, 1945, the order came back: build 20,000 of them for the occupying army. 20,000 cars. That order was the single heartbeat that refused to stop. When the factory could easily have been dismantled and shipped away as war reparations, scrapped for the winners, it kept the lights on instead. By March of 1946, the plant had built its 1,000th post-war car. An English soldier had just saved Hitler's car, almost by accident. And then the strangest turn of all. The car went to America, into a country of enormous chrome land yachts. The cars the length of small boats rolled this tiny, slow, funny-looking bug from Germany. By every rule of the American road, it should have been laughed out of the showroom. Instead, in 1959, an advertising agency in New York did something no one had ever dared. They ran an advertisement that called their own car small. They called it ugly. 2 words on a field of empty white space. Think small. They told the plain truth. It's honest. It's simple. It doesn't pretend to be more than it is. And a whole generation heard something the ad men never intended to say. Because the kids who grew up reading that ad walked straight into the 1960s. Anti-war, anti-consumer, sick to death of their parents' giant chrome status symbols. And they looked at the humble little Beetle and its slab-sided bus, and they saw themselves. The car of the Third Reich became the car of peace, love, and the open road. By 1968, Disney made one of them a movie star, Herbie the Love Bug, a racing beetle with a mind of its own. Nobody told the children where that shape had come from. And on the 17th of February, 1972, the little car did something the mightiest name in automotive history had held for 45 years. It passed the Ford Model T, 15,000,007 cars built, the most produced car the world had ever seen. Now, bring back that number, 336,000. In 1961, a West German court finally ruled that the savers who had been cheated were owed something, a small settlement, a modest credit toward a new car. Decades too late, but real. The people who had been robbed to build the people's car at the very last got a fraction of it back. And think about what that shape became. Built to serve a dictator, it outlived him by decades. Built as propaganda, it became the beloved mascot of the exact people who tore his ideas down. They kept building it all the way to 2003 in a factory in Mexico, 21.5 million of them. The car came to mean the precise opposite of everything it was made to mean. Maybe that's the only real revenge history ever offers. Not to erase the lie, but to take it, turn it inside out, and sell it back to the world as its opposite, 21 million times over. One shape, 2 centuries, from a tyrant's broken promise to the people's car. I'll see you in the next one. If this one got you, the story of the car everyone thinks they know, subscribe and tell me one thing in the comments. Could you ever love a machine with a past like this? Because next time, the car that won by driving all 4 wheels at once humiliated everyone who ever laughed at it, and then conquered the most dangerous era motorsport had ever seen, right up until they banned it to stop the dying.